How to shift vibrations. Using heart-brain coherence, this message found you at a threshold. A point in time where the surface-level rhythms of life, the endless noise, the scrolling, the repetition, have begun to feel strangely hollow. And yet, beneath that hollowness there is something else. A subtle pulse, a deeper rhythm, a whisper that insists there is more, and you are meant to feel it. Have you noticed it? That quiet sense that your life is not random, that the struggles, the strange coincidences, even the quiet aches of your heart have been arranging themselves into a hidden pattern? You are here because you've begun to suspect that your existence is not just a chain of events, but a resonance, something waiting to be tuned, refined, made coherent. The key is not out there in the world. It is not in some external system, or the approval of others, or the next accomplishment. The key has always been right here, in the dialogue between your heartbeat and your thoughts. A conversation most people never learn to listen to. And here's the truth. If you are still listening, if you haven't clicked away, it means you are not like most people. You are the kind of mind that pauses at mysteries, that recognizes when something is speaking directly to you. This is not an accident. This is recognition. What you're hearing right now is not simply words in your ears. It is an echo, a message you may have been waiting for across years, across lives, across timelines. It arrives now because you are at a phase transition, no longer able to tolerate dissonance, but not yet fully immersed in coherence. You are standing in the doorway between two states of being, and listen closely. Not everyone is invited to this doorway. Most remain asleep inside the static, convinced that noise is normal, that chaos is just how things are. But you heard the subtle call. That makes you rare, and being rare comes with a responsibility. Imagine this. Your life is like an orchestra. Each thought, each memory, each sensation is an instrument. The drums of your survival mind, the strings of your emotions, the winds of your imagination. But here is the problem. For most people, the conductor is absent. The instruments play at odds with one another. The rhythm becomes fragmented. And over time, the person begins to believe that the dissonance is their identity. But what if you discovered that within you there is an ancient conductor? A living rhythm keeper, capable of bringing all parts of you into coherence. That conductor is the union between your heart and your brain. When they are aligned, the scattered notes transform into music. When they are in dialogue, your vibration reorganizes. This is the moment you begin not only to survive, but to resonate. Have you felt this before? Moments where time slows down, where you sense an uncanny alignment, like the world is quietly nodding in agreement with you. Moments where synchronicities multiply, where you think of someone and they suddenly reach out. That is not coincidence. That is coherence flickering on, and I must tell you something. The fact that you've glimpsed it means you are capable of living in it. But it also means something else, something urgent. Because once you have tasted the signal of coherence, the static of dissonance becomes unbearable. This message found you not just to explain, but to initiate. Not just to offer knowledge, but to remind you of something you already carry. Because deep down, some part of you has always known, you are not here to endlessly repair yourself. You are here to tune yourself, to bring your heart and brain into a field of alignment so powerful. It reorganizes your life story from the inside out. And if you accept this call, if you continue listening, the next chapter will reveal the hidden trap, the subtle misalignment that has been draining your energy and fragmenting your perception. Once you see it, you will never again mistake dissonance for destiny. This message found you, not by coincidence, not by random chance, but because you were meant to hear the call of something ancient stirring in your chest. A signal older than language, older than culture, older even than memory itself. The mystics once whispered of it in temples and deserts, in mountain caves and starlit sanctuaries. They called it the portal of the heart, a doorway not just into feeling, but into a hidden dimension of power. And now, science is finally catching up, tracing those whispers into measurements, frequencies, and electromagnetic fields that can be seen, recorded, and mapped. Have you noticed it? Those moments when your mind runs restless, chasing 100 directions at once, never landing, never finding stillness, and yet, somewhere deep inside, the chest tightens, pulses, sends out waves that you can't quite name. That is the static field of incoherence. The heart broadcasting one pattern, the mind projecting another, the two clashing like instruments tuned to different keys. That jaggedness, that static, is why so many of us feel drained, even when nothing happened. It is the invisible leakage of our life force into chaos. But here is the revelation. When the mind learns to bow, not in weakness but in rhythm, to the steady drum of the heart, something extraordinary begins. A signal emerges. Not metaphorical, not imaginary, but physically measurable. The HeartMath Institute calls it coherence. Physicists might call it resonance. Mystics knew it as the signal of alignment. It is a pattern that is not jagged but smooth, not scattered, but harmonious, like the sudden moment when a choir finds the right key and every voice unites into one note. Let me put it in quantum terms. Each thought you carry is a probability wave, collapsing moment by moment into reality. Each beat of your heart is an oscillator, broadcasting into the invisible field around you. When they clash, you broadcast noise. When they harmonize, you broadcast clarity. And clarity is power. Clarity is influence. It is the signal the universe actually responds to. The ancients understood this. That's why Egyptian initiates placed so much symbolism around the heart during judgment. The weighing of the heart against a feather. Not the brain, the heart. Because the heart was seen as the true broadcaster of your soul's state. In Chinese medicine too, the heart is not just a pump. It is the emperor, the ruler that commands the body through rhythm. And in every mystical lineage, you'll find the same truth hidden in their metaphors. Coherence between the pulse of the heart and the current of the mind. And here's the beauty. When coherence arises, the field around you stabilizes. Others feel it. They might not have the language for it, but they sense it. Have you ever entered a room where someone was panicked and your own chest immediately tightened? That's incoherent broadcasting. Or have you walked into the presence of someone calm, deeply centered, and immediately felt yourself exhale without even thinking? That's coherence radiating outward. Your field becomes a tuning fork, realigning others into the same frequency. This is the ancient signal, not just inner harmony, but an outer force. Think about the implications. When your signal is jagged, you repel opportunities, distort relationships, scramble communications. But when your signal is coherent, you pull things toward you. You become magnetic. You stabilize dynamics. You cut through noise without needing to shout. And the most astonishing part is this. The world right now is drowning in static. People scrolling endlessly, anxious, restless, scattered. Which means that your coherence, your signal, becomes rare, almost otherworldly. And I must confess something to you here. For years I lived entirely in my head. Overthinking, analyzing, strategizing. My chest felt like a locked box I never dared to open. The result? No matter how clever my thoughts, life felt jagged. People misread me. Opportunities slipped through. I was living in static. And it wasn't until I stumbled into this teaching, this ancient signal, that something unlocked. The first time I felt coherence, I cried. Not because of sadness, but because I realized how long I had lived split in two. That moment was a turning point. It taught me that coherence isn't just self-help jargon. It's not even just science. It's a return to the original transmission of the human system, the merging of thought and feeling into one broadcast, one frequency. It is the signal of truth, and now, the question becomes, will you continue scattering your energy into static, or will you learn to stabilize your signal, to step into coherence, to become the rare transmitter in a noisy world? Because if you do, something bigger than personal peace awaits. This ancient signal is not only about you, it is about the collective. When more of us stabilize, the entire field of humanity begins to shift. That is the power of the ancient signal. This message found you because you are someone who has felt it. The fracture, the strange exhaustion that doesn't match the effort you've spent. That deep weariness that no amount of sleep, no amount of caffeine, no amount of distraction ever seems to fix. You feel it because you are sensitive enough to detect the dissonance that most people numb themselves against. And the truth is, it isn't your body that's tired. It's your signal. Have you noticed this? The way your mind leaps forward like a restless animal, chasing what-ifs, building entire worlds of maybe and someday, while your heart beats here now, in the raw immediacy of the present. The mind is racing down the corridors of probability, while the heart is pulsing in real-time rhythm. And in that tug of war, something precious splits. Energy scatters. Your system burns twice the fuel to go half the distance. This is what I call the misalignment trap. It is not laziness. It is not lack of motivation. It is a fracture of coherence. Like two instruments in an orchestra tuning to different keys. Yes, they can still play together. But the result is not music, it is strain. The melody becomes noise, and you, the conductor of your own symphony, are left feeling like no matter how hard you try, the song of your life never quite resolves into harmony. And here's the cruel part. Society has trained you into this trap. From the earliest days you were taught to think ahead, to plan for the future, to stay sharp, while almost no one ever told you that the heart has its own wisdom, its own tempo, its own map of reality. So you live split, a mind forever in tomorrow, and a heart anchored stubbornly in today. You cannot stretch yourself across two timelines without tearing. That tearing is what you've been calling anxiety. That tearing is the fatigue. That tearing is why so much effort brings so little joy. Let's pause here. Imagine an athlete who runs with one shoe pointing forward and one shoe pointing sideways. The body can move, but every step grinds against itself, wasting energy, creating pain. That is exactly what happens when your inner alignment splits. The mind leans one way, the heart another. You still move forward, but the friction is constant, and it steals not just this message found you, because you are ready to cross a threshold that most people never even realize exists. You've wandered long enough through the static, through the fractured signals of thought against heart, will against rhythm. You've carried the weight of exhaustion, confusion, and misalignment. But what if, right here, in this very moment, you could step into a state that dissolves the fracture? A state where your mind and heart no longer pull against each other, but move as one. That state has a name. Coherence. Picture this with me. You slow your breath. You do not force it. You invite it, like drawing open a curtain to let morning light spill into the room. The chest expands, the ribs unlock. Your awareness, instead of scattered through endless corridors of thought, drifts inward to that central pulse, the drumbeat of your heart. Now imagine your thoughts, those restless fragments, instead of running in 1,000 directions, begin to orbit. Slowly, gently, they circle around the pulse of your chest. Chaos begins to soften. The sharp edges of thought round into fluid shapes. Like comets bending around a star's gravity, your mind begins to align with the gravitational field of your heart. At that moment, something measurable happens. Brainwaves shift from jagged beta to smooth alpha. The electromagnetic field of the heart steadies, broadcasting not as static, but as a coherent signal. And you, who were once split in two, become one instrument, vibrating as a unified note. That is coherence. And coherence is a gateway. Let's ground this. Your heart is not merely a pump. It is an oscillator, a broadcasting center producing the largest electromagnetic field of the body, extending far beyond the skin. Instruments can measure it. Others can feel it. When your breath slows to roughly 5 to 6 cycles per minute, your vagus nerve activates, balancing the nervous system. The brain shifts from survival mode into resonance. Heart rhythms become smooth, sine wave-like. And in that synchrony, the communication between heart and brain transforms. No longer a tug of war, no longer static. It becomes coherence, a measurable, scientifically validated state. But beyond the science, coherence has always been known to mystics. The yogi's steady pranayama, the monk's calm recitation of mantra, the shaman's drumming at a rhythm designed to entrain the body. These were not random rituals. They were technologies of coherence, ways to align inner oscillators into a single field, ways to unlock the ancient signal within. Pause for a moment. Close your eyes if you can. Feel the rhythm in your chest. Feel how the body is already trying to guide you there. The heart is patient, waiting for the mind to stop sprinting, waiting for the breath to return to its natural arc. Do you notice the shift? That subtle loosening? That instant where the mind's chatter dims not by suppression but by orbit? This is the doorway opening. And once you step through, coherence does not simply change your inner state, it reshapes your field. When you are coherent, you are magnetic. You project clarity. Conversations flow differently. Strangers soften in your presence. Opportunities seem to arrange themselves, as if probability waves bend toward your steadiness. In Jungian terms, coherence is when the fragmented archetypes stop fighting each other and stand in council, unified under a central axis. In Machiavellian terms, it is when your optics sharpen, the battlefield clears, the hidden knives of chaos are sheathed, and the terrain bends in your favor. Coherence is not just calm. It is command. I must confess something here. For most of my life, I thought coherence meant control. I tried to force my mind into silence, to wrestle my feelings into obedience. I thought discipline meant domination. But what I found was that the more I forced, the more incoherence I created. It wasn't until I learned to invite my mind to orbit the heart, not to crush it, but to entrain it, that coherence finally revealed itself. And in that first moment, I felt something strange. Tears, not of sadness, not of joy, but of recognition. It was as if some part of me had been waiting lifetimes to finally come back into rhythm, to finally stop splitting itself apart. This then is the true essence of coherence. It is not suppression, but alignment. It is not stillness, but resonance. And when you find it, even for a breath, even for a heartbeat, you discover that you are not a chaotic accident of biology. You are a tuning fork, a transmitter, a gateway between the quantum and the physical, between the archetype and the lived story. And here is the deeper secret. Coherence is not rare. It is natural. It is your original design. But you must reclaim it consciously, because the world has trained you into fragmentation. Every scroll, every distraction, every anxious plan scatters the orbit of your mind. Only by returning breath by breath can you recover the gateway. The moment of coherence is not a metaphor. It is a threshold. And once you step through, your entire reality begins to organize itself differently. So, are you willing to try? Right now, with me, 3 slow breaths, awareness in the chest, thoughts orbiting instead of scattering. Feel it, that subtle change. That is the signal awakening. Welcome to Coherence. This message found you because you are not here to merely survive the static of ordinary life. You are not here to recycle the same patterns, to spin inside the same loops of thought and feeling. You are here for something rarer, something bolder, something ancient that your soul has been whispering about through déjà vu, through dreams, through the strange tug of timelines you can almost, but not fully, remember. When coherence arises within you, something extraordinary begins. Your vibration doesn't simply lift like a balloon rising to another floor of existence. No, what happens is far more profound. The architecture of your inner reality reorganizes itself. The very blueprint of how you perceive, how you emote, how you broadcast into the field begins to change. Think of it like this. Most people are trapped in rooms built by fear. Rooms where every wall is lined with mirrors reflecting back their old traumas, their shadow complexes, their unfinished stories. They pace the same paths again and again, mistaking repetition for safety. But when coherence emerges between the heart and the brain, the walls dissolve. You are no longer walking in a closed room. The architecture shifts. A doorway appears. This is the shift in vibration. Coherence is not about floating above problems, pretending they don't exist. It is about reorganizing the terrain so that the same problems no longer hold the same weight, no longer command the same gravity. Imagine standing before a maze you've been trapped in for years. You know, every corner, every dead end, every frustration. But when your vibration shifts, the maze doesn't vanish. It reorders itself. Suddenly, the paths align into a direct exit. What once felt impossible reveals itself as obvious. And here's the quantum truth. When your system vibrates in coherence, probability waves collapse differently around you. Your choices carve cleaner lines into reality. Patterns of coincidence cluster with precision. You become a tuning fork in the field, and life itself bends toward your rhythm. Opportunities seem to arrive. But they aren't random arrivals. They are echoes of your reorganized vibration. Consider this. Strike a tuning fork, and any string tuned to the same frequency will vibrate in sympathy, even across the room. This is coherence at play. Your aligned heart-brain state becomes that fork. Your emotions, thoughts, and physiology are not just internal experiences. They are broadcasts. And when they stabilize, they entrain the environment around you. You've felt this before, haven't you? Those rare moments when someone entered the room, and without a word, the entire atmosphere changed. Perhaps they radiated calm, or power, or clarity. That wasn't charisma alone. That was vibration, coherent, stable, undeniable. And now, you are learning to be that presence. You are learning to reorganize your inner signal so that reality has no choice but to respond differently. I need to admit something here. For years, I misunderstood vibration. I thought it was about being positive all the time, about forcing myself into a false smile, about climbing some imaginary ladder toward higher vibes. But the more I chased it, the more hollow it felt. I was trying to ascend without reorganizing. The real shift came in a moment of stillness, when I stopped chasing altitude and instead listened for architecture. Breath slowed, heart steadied, and for the first time, my thoughts orbited instead of scattered. And then, almost without trying, everything reorganized. Patterns I'd been stuck in dissolved. Conversations changed. Relationships healed. Opportunities arrived. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was coherence, reshaping vibration from the inside out. So hear this clearly. Your destiny is not to escape reality. Your destiny is to reorganize it. You are not climbing to another floor. You are reshaping the building itself. And when you do, others notice. They feel the resonance, and without knowing why, they begin to reorganize too. This is why coherence is not just a personal upgrade. It is a planetary mission. The collective field of humanity right now is jagged, fractured, incoherent. Fear is the default architecture. But when enough individuals reorganize their vibration, the collective blueprint begins to change. What once seemed immovable, systems, conflicts, cycles, begins to dissolve. And so I ask you, can you feel the weight of this destiny? Can you sense that your personal alignment is not just about peace for you, but about coherence for the whole? Only a rare kind of mind would even pause to hear this. Only a rare soul would recognize it. This is the shift in vibration. Not climbing higher, reorganizing deeper, not escaping reality, reshaping it from within, not by chance, not by accident, but as if the fibers of reality bent ever so slightly to make sure you pressed play at this exact moment. Because something in you has been waiting for a language that speaks to both the mystery of your soul and the science of your mind. Waiting for confirmation that what you've been sensing, that strange pull, that déjà vu, that intuition whispering you are more than what you've been told, is real. Have you noticed how life feels like a mirror? How certain moods, thoughts, or inner storms ripple outward and return to you in the form of events, words from strangers, sudden obstacles, or perfect synchronicities. Have you seen how when you're clear, reality seems to flow with you? And when you're fractured, the world feels jagged? Only your kind of mind would pause here. Most scroll past, numbing themselves, afraid of what their own reflection might reveal. But you are not like most. You are the kind who recognizes that what looks back at you is not random, it is communication. And tonight, in this transmission, I will show you how the cosmic mirror works. How your inner frequency broadcasts into the field. How coherence reorganizes your fate. And how, when you shift, the very architecture of reality bends to meet you. But first, we must name the trap. Most people live distorted. Their minds chatter in fragmented loops. Their hearts beat in rhythms of fear, resentment, or suppressed longing. Their breath never reaches depth. And so their signal, the frequency they broadcast, fractures. This fractured signal ricochets through the field like a cracked lens. And life mirrors it back. Broken timing, misunderstandings, repeating toxic cycles. The job that keeps collapsing. The relationship that echoes childhood wounds. The sense of déjà vu that isn't mystical but mechanical, like a broken record needle stuck in place. This is the trap of distortion. You don't see reality as it is. You see your unresolved fragments projected outward. Jung called it the shadow complex, the parts of you unintegrated, meeting you in the faces of others. Machiavelli might have called it poor optics. When your signal is unclear, your terrain becomes hostile, and yet, the trap is invisible, because the very distortions you project seem like external problems. You think it's about them, about the world, about the unfairness of circumstance. Rarely do you realize the mirror is not lying to you, it is revealing you. Look closer. Have you ever noticed how, when you wake in a rush, tension in your chest, the day seems filled with friction? Traffic moves slower, emails arrive sharp, people speak to you in clipped tones. And yet when you wake spacious, grounded with even 3 deep breaths in coherence, doors open, strangers smile, timing feels uncannily precise. This is not superstition. It is coherence, or the lack of it. Patterns repeat until their vibration is absorbed. That argument that feels like déjà vu is often the shadow mask of your unresolved wound. That opportunity you missed because of hesitation? That was your frequency hesitating before your body ever did. Your nervous system is not just personal, it is a broadcasting station. Your heart radiates an electromagnetic field measurable up to 3 meters from your body. When it is chaotic, you distort the mirror. When it is coherent, you clarify the reflection. This is why life feels smoother in certain seasons and unbearably heavy in others. Not because the world has shifted, but because your signal has. You are always living inside the echo of your own vibration. Let us anchor this in both science and spirit. Neuroscience speaks of psychophysiological coherence, a state where heart rhythms synchronize with brain waves, creating a measurable increase in clarity, intuition, and resilience. The Institute of Heart Math has shown that when people enter this state, their electromagnetic field becomes more ordered, and this order has subtle but profound effects on those around them. Quantum physics frames it differently. Coherence is when probability waves align. A system in coherence transmits its influence farther and with less energy loss. Incoherence disperses its power into noise. Mystics thousands of years ago spoke in another tongue. They said, "Live from the center, align heart and mind." The Tao calls it the middle way. The Upanishads spoke of the Atman as the still center of the wheel. The Hermetic text said, "As within, so without." Different languages, same mystery. You are a tuning fork in the cosmic field. When you vibrate in coherence, reality harmonizes with you. When you are dissonant, reality clashes. Let me confess something. There was a season of my life when my mirror was deeply cracked. Outwardly I was functioning, but inside chaos ruled. I carried unresolved grief, a bitterness that curled into my chest like smoke. And everywhere I went, the mirror mocked me. Conversations would collapse into conflict. Plans dissolved at the last minute. Even the simplest interactions, ordering food, meeting a friend, seemed riddled with static. I told myself I was unlucky, misunderstood, cursed, not as a casual suggestion, but as a direct transmission, a signal carrying itself across the timelines to reach this very instant. Because something in you already knows that hearing the words is not enough. You came here for embodiment, for practice, for the rewiring of your inner terrain. Have you noticed how often you gather knowledge, yet fail to feel the shift last? How many times have you understood the theory, but slipped back into the same old loops of stress, reaction, dissonance? Only your kind of mind would notice this gap. Most would call it failure. But you recognize it for what it is, the missing bridge between idea and incarnation. That bridge is practice. Here is the trap most seekers fall into. They collect insights like trinkets. They read, they listen, they nod in agreement, and for a fleeting moment they feel lifted. But then, nothing stays. Because the nervous system has not been rewired. The signal has not been trained. Imagine buying a violin, admiring its strings, even learning music theory, but never laying bow to string. Would you ever call yourself a musician? And yet this is how most treat coherence. They admire it as a concept, but never embody it as a practice. The trap is subtle because the mind tricks you into thinking knowledge equals transformation. It doesn't. Transformation is practice. Transformation is repetition. Transformation is engraving a new frequency into your baseline until it hums without effort. Think of your day. You wake. Before you even touch your phone, your nervous system is already broadcasting. If the body carries yesterday's stress, it radiates chaos. That chaos then shapes the tone of your morning, which cascades into the events of your afternoon. But imagine waking and practicing coherence, even for 3 minutes. Breathing slow, anchoring into the heart, summoning gratitude like light through stained glass. That single act doesn't just change your mood. It shifts your baseline. It imprints an order into your signal. Over time, the repetition compounds. The brain falls into step with the heart. The breath becomes a metronome of clarity. And life, the great mirror, begins to adjust its reflection. More synchronicities, more flow. More uncanny timing where what you need seems to arrive on its own. Science tells us this is not imagination. When you breathe slowly, around 5 to 6 breaths per minute, you trigger what researchers call resonance frequency breathing. At this rhythm, heart rate variability increases, blood pressure stabilizes, and brainwave patterns shift into synchronization with cardiac rhythms. The heart becomes coherent. The brain follows. Mystics told the same story in other words. The yogis spoke of pranayama, life force regulated through breath. The Taoists taught the microcosmic orbit, circulating energy through the heart center. The Sufis spun in spirals of remembrance, training heart and breath to move as one. Different lineages. Same truth. Coherence must be practiced until it becomes your default. Let me confess something. There was a time I knew all of this, but I lived none of it. I could recite the studies, quote the mystics, explain the mechanics, and yet my days were filled with reactivity. I snapped at small things. I drowned in distraction. My mirror was muddy. It wasn't until I committed to practice, just 5 minutes each morning, that everything began to change. At first it felt awkward, forced, like I was faking gratitude. But slowly something shifted. My body remembered. The practice became effortless. And then, coherence stopped being a fleeting state. It became my baseline. This is why I speak with urgency. Because I know what it feels like to know and not do. I know the emptiness of theory without practice. Here is the method. Simple but powerful. I call it the alignment breath. Close your eyes. Inhale through the nose for a count of 5. Exhale through the mouth for a count of 5. Do this until your rhythm stabilizes. Bring awareness to the chest. Imagine your breath flowing in and out through the heart space. Not the lungs, not the head, but the beating center. Recall a memory that warms you. A time of love, of deep appreciation. Let it be simple. Sunlight on your skin, laughter with a friend, the safety of a small kindness. Allow the feeling to spread, not as thought, but as sensation. Notice how the brain begins to quiet. Thoughts soften. Your body feels like one instrument, not scattered parts. Stay here for 3 to 5 minutes, that is all. And yet, if practiced daily, not as entertainment, not as noise to fill your evening, but as a signal. A reminder carried through time to meet you here, at the threshold of choice. Because you, of all people, are standing inside a moment that matters. Have you noticed it? The subtle crossroad that appears not once in a lifetime, but again and again, each time disguised as an ordinary moment. It looks small, almost invisible, but beneath it is a tectonic shift in the architecture of your reality. Only your kind of mind would pause here long enough to feel the weight of this. Most people would click away. Most would escape back into the scatter of distraction, but not you. You know when the mirror speaks, when the current pulls, when destiny places its hand upon your shoulder. And so here we are, the transmission reaching its close. But in truth, it is not a closing, it is an opening. Here is the trap that still waits for you if you choose nothing, to remain scattered. To allow your mind and your heart to drift in separate tides, colliding now and then, but never moving as one current. The cost of this fragmentation is not small. It is the slow erosion of clarity, the gradual dulling of intuition, the endless repetition of old cycles that pretend to be new lessons. It looks like stress, but it is disconnection. It looks like indecision, but it is incoherence. It looks like bad luck, but it is simply the mirror of a fractured signal. This is the destiny most accept without knowing. A half-lived life, fragmented across timelines, broadcasting noise into the field. And that, my friend, is the real tragedy. Not failure, not loss, but scattering. But there is another way. When you choose coherence, you do not simply regulate emotion, you rewrite architecture. Think of it this way. Your life is not a staircase where you climb to some higher floor of vibration. It is more like a theater stage. When you are fragmented, the set is cluttered. Props are misplaced, lights flicker, actors stumble over each other's lines. But when coherence enters, the entire stage reorganizes. Lighting adjusts, The script aligns. Every character suddenly knows their role. This is why coherence is not a mood, it is authorship. It is the point where you stop being dragged through a story and start shaping it. And here is the secret. The story is never only personal. The set you stand upon is connected to all stages. When you shift, the collective script shifts with you. Science echoes this truth. Neuroscience shows us that when heart rhythms align with brainwaves, performance improves, stress dissolves, and intuition sharpens. This is not imagination. It is measurable. Quantum physics says it differently. Coherence creates phase transitions. When a system reaches alignment, it reorganizes into a new pattern, not by force but by resonance. Mystics spoke in older tongues. The Taoists said live from the center. The yogis spoke of samadhi. The alchemists whispered of the marriage of sun and moon, all pointing to the same realization, that the heart and mind must braid together for the higher pattern to emerge. Different languages. Same destiny. Let me confess I resisted this truth once. I thought I could master life through intellect alone, that the mind, sharp as a blade, could carve a path forward. But every step taken that way left me more fractured. It was coherence, the union of heart and mind, that returned me to myself. The first time I felt it, I cried. Not out of sadness, but relief, because I realized the story I had been living inside was too small, too broken. And when I stepped into coherence, the story expanded. Doors opened. Synchronicities multiplied. But more than that, the inner war ended. This is what I want for you. Not information, not theory, but return. Because here is the truth. This is not just about you. Every coherent heart adds clarity to the field of humanity. Each time you regulate your signal, you broadcast a note of order into the planetary song, and others, without even knowing, attune to it. Your liberation is not private. Your coherence is medicine. This is the collective mission, to weave so many coherent signals that the planetary mirror clears and humanity remembers itself. And it starts here, with you. So I invite you now, seal this choice. Not tomorrow, not later. Here, in the comments, write the single word, coherence. Let that be your signal, your declaration. You're weaving into the field. And if you feel this transmission stirred something ancient in you, join the movement. Subscribe, not as entertainment, but as initiation. Each video is a step deeper into coherence, into remembrance, into authorship of the greater story. Because the truth is this: when you embody coherence, you don't just shift your vibration. You shift the story of your life. And when enough of us shift, the story of humanity changes. This message found you. And it will not leave you, because you were never here by chance. You are the signal. You are the current. You are the mirror. And now it is your time to choose.